Good evening. I'm Colonel Matthew Packard, Chief of the Colorado State Patrol, Packard. First, again, good evening. Thank you all very much for being here today to talk about the incident that happened last Friday. I want to start by expressing my personal, sincere thanks for the incredible outpouring of support from the members of the community near and far. And on behalf of the men and women of the Colorado State Patrol, thank you as well. You have no idea how much that means. Being able to be here as people are dropping things off on, this is his patrol car, as they're offering their support means more than you know. In fact, I was in a meeting with his family today, and they asked me specifically to extend their deep and sincere appreciation. So it really lifts us up in a time when we really need it, and the same for the family. So again, thank you very much. As you know, my intent is to provide a brief update regarding the investigation. I want to emphasize the fact that the investigation is very much still in progress, and it is not complete by any sense. So please keep that in mind, and up front I'll be somewhat limited on other questions specific to the investigation to preserve its integrity. But as you know, on Friday, June 14th, members of the Colorado State Patrol responded to a report of a single vehicle rollover crash on eastbound I-70 in the area of milepost 324 near the town of Deer Trail. It's again in eastern Arapahoe County. That particular crash involved a vehicle in which multiple parties were ejected, and it met the qualifications for our organization to ask for an investigation by our vehicular crimes unit. Trooper Moden was a member of that unit, and was called to the scene to investigate that crash. He arrived on scene of that crash at approximately 8 o'clock that night. And began completing his investigation. At approximately 9:40, he was in the process of documenting the scene when he was struck by a vehicle that came through. Immediately after being struck, another trooper on scene responded to his aid and began life-saving measures. Emergency medical staff was called back to the scene after having been there from the first crash, attempted life-saving efforts, and ultimately he was flown to University Hospital, where staff were unable to revive him. And shortly after 11 o'clock on Friday night, Trooper Moden was declared deceased. At the time of the crash, Trooper Moden's patrol vehicle was parked on the right shoulder of I-70 with its lights activated, as was an additional patrol car from another trooper that was on scene. The collision involved a 1999 Ford F-250 that was driven by an adult male that's from our state, and at the time of the collision the truck was driving in the left lane. At this time the crash is being investigated by members of the Colorado State Patrol's Vehicular Crimes Unit from another part of that team, as well as members of our Investigative Services section, and they're doing it together. Again, I want to stress the fact that this is an in-progress investigation. There are still many things that need to occur. Example, additional interviews, analysis of evidence that's been collected, as well as an examination of the vehicle that was involved. So it's still early as to what are the next conclusions or steps. Just don't know yet as that investigation will continue. I just want to say something I've said before, that Trooper Moden was an incredible asset to this organization, who is dedicated and committed to serving the people of Colorado. Our state is tremendously safer because of his efforts that he did on a lot of different levels. And as we work through our grief, again, the support from the community has been tremendous, and we appreciate it greatly. As we plan a service, it's nice to know we're doing it for a guy that did everything he possibly could to serve, and he was on scene of a crash, doing what he loved, serving the people of Colorado, and he was darn good at it. He was one of our best investigators. The services have been finalized. The services will be held this Friday, June 21st at 11 a.m. At First Church of Denver, which is off of Hampden. And that service will be open to the public, and I encourage folks to pay their respects. The only other thing regarding the investigation that I would like to make sure that's captured is the driver of the truck has been cooperative. and at this time we do not believe there was any impairment suspected in the crash. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Could you please go back over the part where you were describing? It was really hard to hear, Trooper. Sorry about that. For me, at least, where his truck was. You described that it was a 1999 F-250 truck. Is that what you said?
Yeah, the vehicle involved in the crash was a 1999 F-250.
And where was it, in relation to the trooper's car?
The troopers' cars were both parked on the right shoulder of the interstate. And the F-250 was traveling in the left lane of the interstate.
So how many lanes were there between the F-250 and the troopers' cars?
At that location, there are 2 lanes of I-70.
Okay. So is this a situation then where the driver attempted to move over for law enforcement, but then there was an unfortunate collision, or can you speak to that at all? Because I know obviously the move over law is something that gets brought up a lot.
Absolutely, and specifically whether or not the move over law is applicable in this case is still part of the investigation. And at this point, I really can't comment more on the fact of the position of the 2 cars, where the vehicles were.
And where was the trooper when he was hit?
The area of impact was the front end of the F-250 is what hit Trooper Moden, and again the vehicle was in the left lane.
Was the trooper's car in the right lane on the highway?
Both patrol vehicles were parked on the right shoulder.
And you said something about their lights. Were their lights on? Is that what you said as well?
Yes, they were.
Okay. How fast was that truck going?
I don't know the answer to that question. It's still part of the investigation.
And you said that the driver of the truck's being cooperative. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
When you say being cooperative, what exactly does that mean?
He's cooperating. He's talking to investigators. He's trying to assist us in the investigation so we can make sure that we get all the facts correct.
And you mentioned no impairment. Does that mean no charges at this time?
Too early to determine anything about charges. Once the investigation is complete, it'll be presented to the 18th Judicial District Attorney's Office, specifically in Arapahoe County, and they will make any determinations on charges.
And where is that driver from, of the 1999 F-250?
He's from Colorado.
From Colorado.
I don't specifically. I'm not sure.
What can be learned here, Chief? I know we often talk about obviously slowing down when there's clearly law enforcement, whether they be in traffic or on the shoulder. I mean, is there something that can be learned here as we all mourn the loss of this great trooper?
Yeah, it's a message that I've said before. Regardless of who you are, where you are, what you're doing, when you're on our state's roadways, it is so important that we give everything the attention it deserves. Be attentive, be mindful of what's going on around you. Small mistakes have large consequences when you don't give traveling on our state's highways the due regard it deserves.
So this is kind of a sign of that, as a remembrance of that. What should people think when they see this as they pass by, when they stop?
What I would like them to think and really focus on right now is Trooper William Moden. And this is a guy that dedicated 12 years of his life and every ounce of his being somewhere between his family and this organization in a pursuit to make Colorado a safer place. Folks, I got to tell you, the man absolutely loved being a state trooper. He lived and breathed it. His family identified with it, with him, and he knew what was at stake. And he was willing to get up in the middle of the night to go into dark rooms and scary places because he knew that he had a purpose. And that's one of the things that I want to be crystal clear. And when you see this patrol car that he drove to the scene that night, that Will went to work that day because he wanted to make a difference. He wanted to make a difference that day like he did the day before and for the 12 years before that. That's what he was about. And that's what you should remember. And know that there's about 1,200 other men and women that work for this organization that will carry on that legacy.
And Trooper, who investigates something like this to find out what happened in terms of who might have been involved here? Is that an internal team at PBS?
That's the criminal investigation that's ongoing now that I've described. It's the Vehicular Crimes Unit and Investigative Services.
CSP?
Correct.
Okay.
Regarding Friday, is there going to be a procession? What's that going to involve?
There will be a procession that's involved, and obviously a law enforcement style service at that church. And we'll send out a press release with further details either tonight or tomorrow. They'll make sure that everybody has all of that information.
Can you give us any details of his family member?
Yeah, and I'll ask for a little bit of privacy for that family, but I'll tell you, he's married to a wonderful woman who misses him greatly. He's got a large family that is as tight as any family I've ever seen, and they're going to get through this because they have each other. But they're broken, just like our larger blue family. We're all hurting.
I apologize if you said this already. Again, it's a little loud over here. On the services, have you all decided those are public, private?
It will be open to the public.
And I'm sorry to kind of go back to the scene, as I know that that's difficult to talk about. Was Trooper Moden was he doing anything for traffic purposes? I mean, was he hit? Was he standing in the left lane? I guess we're trying to kind of understand this.
I understand it, and that's part of the investigation is still going. And like I said, what I know is what I've told you. That truck was in the left lane, and the patrol cars were in the right and on the right shoulder. And
so part of his role within the organization, would he be there purely for investigation purposes, or also assisting with traffic control, or are those two different things?
Trooper Moden was part of our vehicular crimes unit, and that's their sole purpose. We spent a lot of time training them to make sure that a serious crash like that gets investigated, all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and that's what he was there to do. And that's what he was in the process of doing.
And they're probably, I don't know if you can speak at all to what the traffic conditions were like at the time of his, I know obviously around 8 o'clock when he initially responded, to about the time of his accident, if you will.
Yeah, I don't know the specific conditions.
And Trooper, does CSP have a protocol for investigating? Like, you follow certain rules when investigating a crash? Are there certain things that you go by when something like this happens?
Absolutely. The safety of our members is safety of the public is very important. And one of the things that our organization practices specifically is the traffic incident management, which is a whole philosophy on how we can investigate incidents that occur on highways. In addition to that, our organization chairs, and the deputy chief of the patrol chairs the First Responder Safety Task Force, which is dedicated at identifying training, tools, equipment to help our members and the public be safe while we're out there doing our job.
Can you speak to the numbers about that, about trooper-involved crashes? Are we seeing more of this, or are we seeing about the same?
I don't have the specific numbers right now.
Can we say the trooper was out of the vehicle? We know his vehicle was on the right shoulder, the other vehicle was in the left-hand shoulder. He was out of his vehicle?
Yes, he was out of the vehicle and on foot when he was struck.
And then one last thing to tie it up. I know we want, given the family privacy, can we say, did he have children of his own?
I'm going to ask for that to be private for now.
And what about the ID of the driver? Does the ID of the driver of the truck ever become public in something like this, Trooper?
It will at some point, but not yet.
How are the mother and child doing that were in the initial crash?
I don't have that information.
Why put it out?
Yeah, it's to honor Will. It's to remember his service and sacrifice, and again, remember the trooper that he was, remember the man that he was, and what he stood for. He stood for a better Colorado, and he was successful. He achieved his goal. Thank you very much.
Was there video?
We want to wrap it up. Thank you very much.